Welcome to my show. I'm a guest here. Her name is Lynda Monk. Mrs. Linda, how are you doing, ma?
I'm doing great. And I love Mrs. Linda. Has a nice ring to it.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Linda. And also, thank you so much for the time and the opportunity. Firstly, you are an adoptee. You are also a social worker. You are a life coach and a lifelong journaler. Can you please, Mrs. Linda, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, Mrs. Linda?
Yeah, well, I'm all those things. And I think all the different roles that we play shape a lot of who we are and who we become. I live on the west coast of Canada, and I spend my days supporting other people to create transformational journaling practices that can help them in all areas of their lives. And I'm really passionate about the healing power of writing. So I do a lot of writing, I journal every day, and it's also been a big part of how I've connected and grown in my own identity as an adoptee.
Exactly. It's very much beautiful. As I said earlier, everything we do, it plays a very huge role in our personal life, the way we live, and every single thing that can actually make us more productive in the life we find ourselves. And that is why I would also like to drive to your book because it's really drive more to your personal story as an adopted person. The Adoptee Guide for Healing, Wholeness, and Growth. Can you please, Mrs. Linda, discuss more on the book? And do you also plan to write more books in the coming future, Mrs. Linda?
Yeah, well, this book, The Adoptee's Guide to Healing, Wholeness, and Growth, started out as a guided journal for fellow adoptees because journaling has been how I've explored things related to identity and belonging and healing the abandonment wound and so forth. I know that these are themes that, well, all of us as humans can navigate things about identity and belonging, being enough. It's not unique to being an adoptee, but there are some unique perspectives on it that are relevant when we've been separated from our own families of origin for whatever reason and have become adoptees and how that shapes our lives. And everyone's story is different. But it started out as a guided journal. And as early reviewers started looking at it, they said this is more than a journal, it's a book. And it took on a life of its own, as books do. And I started to articulate different healing pathways, things that we can explore as adoptees. In my early training as a social worker, I learned that healing means to make whole. It's not about being broken and being fixed. It's really about how do we come into wholeness for ourselves? How do we integrate our life experiences, our hurts, our triumphs, all of the things to become who we are and to keep growing and becoming who we're meant to be as our lives evolve. So the healing touchstones in the book are really about looking at one's own story, defining that for oneself. Often adoption stories are given to us by others. You know, we're told what we're told, and what there's lots we don't know. And this book is about coming into authority of authorship of our own stories as adoptees. And so the book is something I'm really excited about. It surprised me too what it became, and as I worked on it, I realized it would be helpful to have some excerpts from my own journal, from my own story as an adoptee. So it has 49 healing touchstones. It has over 200 journaling prompts, and it has many excerpts from my own journaling story. So, the answer to your question about do I plan to write other books? Yes, I set a goal 6 years ago to write a book a year until I was 70 years old. So, this is my sixth book, and I'm now working more fully on my adoptee memoir, which I've been working on and off, uh, mostly off, for over 25 years, and I'm coming fully into it now. This book actually inspired me to really come back to my memoir and keep going with it. Wish me luck.
Exactly. I definitely wish you well. It's definitely not easy. A book every single year is really huge. It shows that journaling is something that is part of you, your personal life, and everything that you do as well. And you also made a lot of profound points as an adopted person, actually giving a service to those who can be an adoptee, and also how they can also use one or two tools to also up their life as well. And also, Mrs. Linda, I would like to drive to the point of you being an adoptee and social worker. What do you
Hmm.
think? I don't know you drive more on those perspectives, but what do you think really inspired you to create a guided journal specifically for adoptees navigating identity, loss, and belonging, Mrs. Linda?
Well, in my career as a social worker, which I started uh, before I ever had my education as a social worker, I volunteered at the Children's Aid Society when I was a teenager. I was really interested in people and our stories, our families. I was just a young person who was interested in other people and the stories of our life. And so I knew I had been adopted through the Children's Aid Society, and I wanted to volunteer there. And you couldn't volunteer until you were 16. So on my 16th birthday, I asked my mom to take me there so I could apply to be a volunteer. And in that volunteer work, I had the privilege of working with young people. I was obviously a young person myself, but I was kind of a big sister role to some other teen girls. And I would read all of the files for social workers, distilling the notes down so that the social workers had key parts for the work they were doing. And I was really exposed at a young age to the complexities of family, and in particular, families that were disrupted or broken due to abuse, due to adoption, foster care, fragmentations in the family for lots of reasons. And I realized early there's really nothing more formative than what happens with our origin stories, our family stories, and how they shape us, how they shape whether we feel we're worthy, whether we feel we're lovable, wanted, whether we're enough as a human being. And witnessing in my own life through the work that I did so much trauma and suffering and pain that people would go through, often in their own families. And I was very fortunate as an adoptee to be adopted into a very loving family. My brother's also an adoptee. We were raised by parents who wanted us, who loved us. And still, there was that longing for me personally to know where I came from. And I think that's a very instinctual human longing. We want to know who we are, where we're from, what's our identity. And it became clear to me that it's not just when our families are very difficult or painful or abusive, uh, that no matter our family circumstance, part of our journey as humans is to try to understand where we fit and that we matter and that we're lovable and all of those things. So I just really wanted to uh, honor that my early social work career gave me so much insight into uh, the power of family and the power of um, systems that also get involved with family, like child welfare systems and um, uh, agencies that are trying to also be helpful and do good work in the world. So I had the opportunity to be with a lot of families, which was a great privilege, which really made me think a lot more about my own. And I learned that the agency where I was volunteering and then became a social worker once I graduated from university, it was became my first social work job was at that same Children's Aid. Once I eventually found and reunited with my biological mother, which I did at the age of 30, I learned from her that when she gave birth to me, this is in 1969, that she had me for 5 days with her and then drove me. Someone drove her. She was holding me as a passenger in the car. And she dropped me off at this very Children's Aid Society where I worked, that I then was adopted through. And so every day when I went to work and went up and down these stairs at 164 Albert Street at the time in London, Ontario, my birth mother walked up those same stairs when she handed me over to the social worker to give me up for adoption. And so this intersection between my own work as a social worker, where I worked, the story of my own uh, being relinquished for adoption was all interconnected, as it turned out, unbeknown to me. Yeah.
Mrs. Linda, I sincerely appreciate the great insights. As an adoptee, as you said earlier, it varies for every single families. And it is so humbling to actually be in one of the most vulnerable one, the one that actually loves and cares as well. But despite an adoptee, there are a lot of questions always in their mind. Who are my parents? Where are they? Why do they leave me alone? Why do they actually bring me out there? And those questions continues to evolve as humans, which shows the kind of journey they have to actually take in he or his or her life to actually move things forward, which actually bring out more profound steps that can help one also grow, emerge, and also become more better at large. I'm so glad you actually met one of your parents, which is the mother. I don't know if you actually met the father, but meeting one actually give the sense of story and also personality for us to actually it makes one whole again, happy again that this is
Mhm.
my real person, and the joy as well. And I
Mm.
sincerely appreciate you for the wonderful insight, Mrs. Linda. But in your journal, one of the things that you wrote that is also very powerful in your theme is belonging. So belonging is a powerful theme in your work. What does true belonging looks like for someone whose story may include rupture, separation, and unanswered questions, Mrs. Linda?
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for everything you just said and acknowledging all, all that's part of things. And the there's a fracture often for adoptees because there is complexities that we have to hold at once. There's that sense of loss of being separated from an original family, our biological family, under whatever circumstances. But there's also the gratitude, potentially gratitude for being adopted, but that can also have painful stories. There's love and loss at the same time. And that's true for us as humans. We often hold these complexities. But what's so important is that our healing isn't about either or. I think healing is really about how do we hold the wholeness, that this is true and this is true, that there's gratitude and there's grief, there's loss and there's love, there's belonging and there's also wondering about where you fit. So there's these dualities that are integrated, obviously. And ultimately, I think true belonging actually begins within ourselves, but it can take a while to arrive to that. It can take a while to realize that we can belong to ourselves. We can belong to our own experiences, our own stories. And for adoptees, there often can be quite a deep ache around this thing called belonging. Because even in a loving family, for example, as I said, in a loving family, they're still not the people you're born from. They're not people that I necessarily looked like or had those instinctual qualities with. There's that nature nurture, those things that are part of us because they're part of our genetics and our DNA and so forth. And there's that nurture, what has been conditioned in us through our experiences, through our environments. And that that sort of rupture or separation can cause a lot of confusion about that. and just that sense of how do you really know you're still worthy of love and connection when this rupture or sense of belonging has been maybe fractured through the adoption experience. So belonging isn't about perfection. It's not about having to, be this version of ourselves or that version of ourselves to be worthy of love or worthy to belong where we are. It really is a lot about self-acceptance and a lot about not abandoning ourselves as well. Really, what does it mean to show up for the self? What does it mean to love the self? What does it mean to say, it's okay that I wonder about where I fit in? It's okay that I have all these complex emotions. It's okay that, I'm really sad on my birthday because I'm thinking about the parents that I, didn't get to be with, for example. And you mentioned my biological mother and me finding her. I also searched for my biological father, and I only found his identity out more recently in the last 3 years or so. And when I learned who he was, I and found him through a whole series of events. He unfortunately had already died in 2015. But with it, I learned that I had three half siblings. So I've met two brothers, and very sadly, my biological sister, who I did not get to meet yet, actually just died within the last week at the age of 49. And so I'm about to go back to my home community in London, Ontario, and I will be connecting with my biological brothers and other biological family who in many ways are strangers because so far I've had pizza parties with them and seen a few pictures. Um, but yet there's this deep connection. They are my kin. We share the same bloodline. And it's very strange to have people who are so familiar and also be strangers. But that, love can build a lot of bridges. And I'm grateful that we're choosing to love each other and get to know each other all at the same time.
Very much beautiful, Mrs. Linda. It is absolutely amazing that the love is there. But actually, may his perfect soul rest in peace, your father, and also the elder sister, which is a sibling as well. And also all the
Mm-hmm.
ones that you've also connected to. And that is what we call family. There is nothing more valuable than family,
Mm-hmm.
our blood. It will always be there.
Mm-hmm.
Despite how distant we are, we do know that now the digital globalism are there, there is something that connects family together. And that was the feelings that was there. And I also appreciate you for the
Mm-hmm.
point of the area you actually explained in point of belonging. Because a lot of people just believe that belonging is just to belong in this place or do one thing or the other. It's about ourselves, our self-awareness, how we can help ourselves grow, how we can help ourselves also evolve in calm despite the pressure and the situation and the questions we have within ourselves. So I sincerely appreciate you for the wonderful insights, Mrs. Linda. Mrs. Linda, I would also like to drive to experience what you've actually experienced as someone with a child welfare background. What do you think you have learned about the emotional needs of adoptees that are too often overlooked or misunderstood, Mrs. Linda?
It's a wonderful question. I always keep in mind it's different for everyone, of course. But one of the things I think that's important is that I think there can be a lot of silence and shame around adoption, a lot of secrecy, especially in different eras. So, for example, in the era I was adopted, adoption records were closed. Birth mothers were told their babies could never find them. They were told to forget their babies were ever born. Told to forget the unforgettable. And there were church systems involved with that, child welfare systems involved, government. And it doesn't just happen in a vacuum. There's entire systems around the experience of adoption. And in these era now, we have many more open adoptions and interracial adoptions and more complexities and um, more openness, and yet still there can be that silence and shame. My mother had a baby and her family never knew about it except her mother. Her father died suddenly and never knew that his own daughter had a child, that a grandchild of his was in the world. And that's common, the secrets. And anytime there's silence and secrets, there can be a lot of shame, like there's something wrong. Even when our parents told my brother and I we were adopted, they told us, which was great. I was about 6, my brother was about 4, so we were young children. But at that time, we were told not to tell anybody. And so again, there's all this sense of secrecy, and they had good intentions. They just wanted us to be their family, and us their kids, and them our parents. But what can happen is that some of that grief and confusion and curiosity we might have as adoptees, that gets silenced too, because there isn't necessarily any invitation to talk about it or even acknowledge that there would be any feelings about it. So, one of the things I've learned with my child welfare background is that sometimes our emotional experience as adoptees are just oversimplified. Oh, you were born here, you were given here, and you had your life. But inside of that are many, many layers of complexities and emotion. And it's not just at any one stage in life. I felt certain things as a little girl on my birthday, wondering if my birth mother thought about me because I was thinking about her. When I became a mother myself, and I had that profound experience of mother love, I also came into grief, like what that must have been like for my birth mother to have to give away her baby. How painful, how traumatic. Losing my own parents to Alzheimer's and seeing them forget their whole lives, including me. I remember a day standing when I knew my father was forgetting who I was. He was at that stage of Alzheimer's. And I was thinking, here's my father trying to remember who I am. And here's my mother who was told to forget I was even born. And so every experience has all of these layers, and they're not just a single moment in time. They keep coming with us through stages of our life. And it's so important to keep allowing our identity to be shaped as we come into deeper understanding. That's what I love about journaling. It's a tool for deepening our self awareness. It's a tool for caring for ourselves. It's a tool for expressing the feelings maybe we don't have a place to express any place else. And adoption really needs spaces. Adoptees and the adoption world, I think, really needs spaces where we can talk openly without shame, without judgment, without these simplistic, um, sort of reduced down narratives on adoption, but where our emotions can be validated, and they can be validated without judgment, without pressure, and seen for what they are, which is complex and formative. And I think when we can have spaces that do that, we come into that healing, we come into that wholeness, we come into that self-acceptance, and also more acceptance of everyone involved in our adoption stories, because there's forgiveness that's needed. There's making peace with the way things are, and um, just opening to connect with what's real about our experiences, and being okay with that, and being able to live full and happy lives. A lot of adoptees struggle. There's higher rates of addiction in the adoptee community, higher rates of suicide. And what we know is, in part, it's because so much of this pain is suppressed. And if we can actually acknowledge it and have care and compassion and open conversations like these, and books that support us and communities that support us, then people don't have to suffer on their own in this quiet shame response, but can be met with love and can be met with understanding. And that changes everything. That is the good medicine. And we need more good medicine, not just for adoptees, but in our world at large. But we're talking about the adoptee experience today. And I really hope that a book like this and just conversations like this can help adoptees know that our feelings are valid, they make sense, that everyone's story matters, that it's a lifelong path to really understand our stories and to honor them and to pour love into them so that we can have the best lives we can have, to individually and also together.
Mrs. Linda, which is one of the beauty of community coming together. Because to be honest with you, Mrs. Linda, when someone hears a child is adopted, it actually sounds, one or two ways, most especially in our community where one do not value the other, a lot of things, isolation and stuff like that. And despite how all these things are imagined as well, as adoptee, I do not know how it is, but I do understand how tough it is as a person who actually realize that he or she is not with his or her parent, is or she is being nurtured by a family who loves them and also embrace them and also see them as one of them. And to also evolve and also other things that we can also do to help ourselves. We can just say adoptees can just try their best. We hope that communities that can bring them together, share experiences, and also explore and also feel among in society, even not afraid to tell the society, I was once and I was, adopted by this family as well. It's so much profound. And Mrs. Linda, I sincerely appreciate the great insight you brought to this conversation as well. Mrs. Linda, there is also a question I normally ask during the end of the show. From our forefathers, from our ancestors, there are a lot of beautiful things that do exist during our forefathers' time that is missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time today, Mrs. Linda, what do you think that thing would be, Mrs. Linda?
Well, perhaps it is this energy of community and also um, that sense that we're never alone. In my book, I talk about this energy of love lines and bloodlines. When we think about our ancestors or our forefathers, this bloodline that runs through who we are and where we come from. And many generations back and many generations forward. I've been blessed to do a lot of work in our Indigenous communities here in Canada. And there's often that honoring of 7 generations before and 7 generations forward by way of we belong to a long continuum of time and people and practices and beliefs that we're part of. And this idea of love line is one way of understanding who we are. And then there's these love lines, the people that choose to love us, the people we choose to love, chosen kin, chosen places of belonging, being in the world, just being alive at this time in history. We belong to something that's greater than ourselves always. And I think connecting to other people as humans, there's so much isolation and loneliness in a time where we have more connectivity than ever with social media and so forth. And yet there's a hunger in our souls to know each other more deeply, to know ourselves and to honor these lives that we're living. They matter. And we live our stories, which is why I think telling our stories matter, writing our stories, journaling our stories. We live our stories, the stories we tell ourselves, the stories that have been given to us from our forefathers, from our history, the stories that we haven't lived yet, the stories that we're dreaming into. Yesterday, I did a future self journaling workshop with a group of young girls, 12 to 18 years of age. And it was about dreaming forward, seeing that future version of themselves as they hope for. And how does that inspire who we become? So we live on this continuum of where we've been, where we are, and where we're going, and in a bigger continuum of where our roots have been and where those roots are, how they're growing, those roots are growing into the future. There's a chapter in the book called Roots. And I really think as humans, we're always trying to find like what are those deep roots that ground us, that hold us in this beautiful life we have. And then how do we grow, and how do we prosper? How do we have good health and happiness? And that love line is like it's the garden. It's all the places of love and choice and showing up with each other is really so important. And so that's a long answer, but I think it comes down to choosing love for ourselves, love for each other, and being in communities that support who we are and who we're becoming.
Completely agree, and I sincerely appreciate you for the wonderful insight. There is nothing much more beautiful than having the right people behind us, having them around us, showing love around them, showing love back to back, down to our families, our communities that we find in our life. It is so much powerful, and it carries so much strength within us. And as you said, belonging, being part of something that actually makes us to be part of the world, despite the pressure we always feel like we belong to a society, something that actually make us happy, because it is actually not easy doing it alone, most especially in
Mm-hmm.
our time today, which is one of the things I feel like
Mm-hmm.
people do not really understand. Community is powerful. It
Mm-hmm.
shows a sense of belonging,
Mm-hmm.
and it helps us in several areas in our life. Mrs. Linda, I want to use
Mm-hmm.
this opportunity to thank you for the time and also the great work you did in regards to writing a book in regards to the adoptees who are out there, because it is really sin, to be honest with you. And I want to thank you for the time and the opportunity for us to have this profound and insightful conversation. Thank you so much, Mrs. Linda.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, Mrs. Linda. Have a wonderful day, Mrs. Linda. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you. Go well.